The polished boots of Maya Jenkins clicked softly against the cool, polished marble floor of the Grand Sterling Bank's opulent lobby. Sunlight, fractured by the towering arched windows, painted shifting patterns across the gleaming surfaces, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still, conditioned air. Maya clutched a worn, slightly crumpled manila envelope to her chest, its edges softened by countless journeys. A stark contrast to the crisp, unblemished leather briefcases and designer handbags that glided past her. Her heart, a small, frantic bird, fluttered against her ribs, a nervous anticipation mingling with a quiet determination. She had practiced this moment a dozen times in her head, the words she would say, the confident smile she would offer. But now, standing amidst the hushed grandeur, the rehearsed lines felt flimsy, distant. A sudden, sharp laugh from a woman in a tailored suit near the gilded telewindows cut through the lobby's polite hum, making Maya flinch. The sound seemed to echo, amplified by the high ceilings, drawing the attention of a few impeccably dressed patrons who cast fleeting, indifferent glances her way before returning to their hushed conversations or the glowing screens of their expensive phones. Maya pulled her shoulders back, a quiet resolve hardening her gaze. This was important. This was for her future. For the future her mother had worked so tirelessly to build. She moved towards the shortest line, her worn sneakers feeling oddly heavy on the luxurious carpet as she approached the counter dot at the third teller window. A woman with a perfectly coiffed blonde bob and a name tag that read Miss Albright offered a tight, almost imperceptible smile to the departing customer, a man in a pinstriped suit who collected his receipt with a flourish. Miss Albright's eyes, a cool shade of blue, then flicked to Maya, lingering for a fraction of a second on her simple, faded jeans and the well-loved envelope before settling on her face with a practiced, almost bored politeness. "Next," she murmured, her voice a smooth, low hum, devoid of any genuine warmth. Maya stepped forward, placing the envelope carefully on the counter. "Good morning, ma'am," she began, her voice a little softer than she intended, a tremor of nervousness she tried to suppress. "I'd like to make a deposit, please, Miss." Albright's perfectly manicured fingers, adorned with a delicate silver ring, hovered over her keyboard, then paused. Her gaze drifted from Maya's face to the envelope, then back again, a subtle narrowing of her eyes. "A deposit?" she repeated, her tone now laced with a hint of skepticism, as if the very concept was foreign to Maya. "Do you have an account with us, dear?" "Yes, ma'am. It's a joint account with my mother, Dr. Evelyn Jenkins," Maya replied, trying to project confidence. She pushed the envelope a fraction closer. "The account number is on the deposit slip inside." A faint, almost imperceptible sigh escaped Miss Albright's lips. She picked up the envelope with a delicate two-finger grip, as if it might contaminate her pristine workstation, and opened it. Her eyes scanned the contents, and a flicker of something disbelief, perhaps disdain crossed her features. She glanced at the deposit slip, then at the stack of neatly bundled cash inside, her eyebrows rising just a fraction. This is a rather large sum for a cash deposit, isn't it?" she said, her voice a little louder now, drawing the attention of the customer behind Maya, a woman with a stern expression and an expensive handbag clutched tightly. "And it's not properly bundled. We prefer bills to be in denominations of 100, facing the same way." Maya felt a blush creep up her neck. "I'm sorry, ma'am. My mother usually handles this, but she's in a meeting. She just told me to bring it in." I tried to bundle it neatly. She gestured vaguely at the slightly uneven stacks. "It's all there, though. I counted it twice." Miss Albright pushed the envelope back towards Maya, not quite touching her hand. "Look, dear, for a deposit of this size, and in this condition, we really need to follow proper protocol. It's a matter of security, you understand." Her voice had taken on a patronizing edge, the polite veneer cracking to reveal a thinly veiled impatience. "Perhaps you should have your mother come in herself, or at least send someone who knows how to prepare a deposit for a sum like this." A knot tightened in Maya's stomach. "But it's just cash," she insisted, her voice gaining a hint of desperation. "Can't you just count it? I have my ID." She pulled out her student ID, offering it. Ms. Albright barely glanced at it. "It's not just about counting, dear. It's about the integrity of the transaction. We have procedures for large cash deposits, especially when they're presented in this manner. I am afraid I'll have to call a manager." She reached for her phone, her movements deliberate, almost performative, as if to emphasize the inconvenience Maya was causing. The woman behind Maya shifted impatiently, clearing her throat. A wave of humiliation washed over Maya. She felt the eyes of other customers on her, felt their silent judgment, even though most were likely oblivious to the specifics of the exchange. The grand lobby, moments ago merely intimidating, now felt suffocating, its polished surfaces reflecting her embarrassment back at her. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the marble floor. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Her mother had entrusted her with this, a simple task, and she was failing. Her hands, clutching the envelope, began to tremble almost imperceptibly. Ms. Albright, having made her call, turned back, a triumphant, almost pitying look on her face. Mr. Harrison will be right with us. He handles all the unusual transactions. The word unusual hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Maya's gaze dropped to her once sneakers, a stark contrast to Miss Albright's gleaming, expensive heels. She felt small, insignificant, and utterly out of place. The silence that fell between them, broken only by the distant hum of the bank's operations and the occasional murmur of other customers, felt louder than any shouted accusation. It was the loud stillness of judgment, of an unspoken barrier between worlds. Moments later, a man in a crisp dock suit, his face etched with an air of perpetual annoyance, approached the teller window. This was Mr. Harrison, the branch manager. He had a stern, unyielding gaze that swept over Maya before settling on Miss Albright. "What seems to be the issue here, Miss Albright?" he asked, his voice a low rumble, impatient. "Mr. Harrison, this young lady, Maya Jenkins, is attempting to make a rather substantial cash deposit," Miss Albright began, her voice dripping with professional concern, yet subtly conveying her disdain. "The bills are unbundled, and she seems unfamiliar with our standard procedures for such sums. She claims it's for an account held jointly with a Dr. Evelyn Jenkins, but given the presentation, I felt it best to involve you." She gestured vaguely at the envelope, still resting on the counter. Mr. Harrison's eyes, cold and assessing, fixed on Maya. He picked up the envelope, his fingers quickly sifting through the cash, his brow furrowing deeper with each passing second. "Indeed," he muttered, his voice laced with a thinly veiled suspicion. "This is quite a bit of cash, young lady, and it's not even in proper order. Where did this money come from?" His tone was accusatory, implying something illicit, something untoward. Maya's cheeks burned. "It's from my mother, sir. She's a doctor. She earned it." The words felt weak, inadequate against his stern gaze. "She just had a busy morning and asked me to bring it in, Mr. Harrison scoffed, a dismissive sound. "A doctor, you say? And she sends her daughter with a large sum of unbundled cash? This is highly irregular. We have strict anti-money laundering protocols. For a deposit of this nature, we'd need to verify the source of funds, especially when presented in such a casual manner." He looked at Miss Albright, a shared glance of knowing skepticism passing between them. "I'm afraid, young lady, we cannot accept this deposit today. You'll need to have your mother come in person with proper identification and be prepared to explain the origin of these funds." He pushed the envelope back across the counter, his expression one of finality. Maya felt a fresh wave of despair. Her hands were shaking visibly now, the worn envelope a heavy weight. But she's Dr. Evelyn Jenkins," Maya repeated, as if the name itself should carry weight, should unlock understanding. "She's the CEO of Veritas Pharmaceuticals. She's a very busy person, Mr. Harrison's lips twitched, a faint, almost mocking smile playing on them. "Veritas Pharmaceuticals? My dear, if your mother were truly the CEO of such a prominent company, I assure you she would know our procedures. And she certainly wouldn't send a child with a cash deposit like this." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a condescending whisper. "Look, I understand you might be trying to help your mother, but this is a bank, not a playground. We deal with serious money here." The humiliation was complete, a bitter taste in Maya's mouth. She felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. She would not cry here, not in front of these people. She would not give them the satisfaction. Her quiet strength, a trait she inherited from her mother, began to surface, pushing back against the tide of shame. She picked up the envelope, her fingers trembling but her grip firm. "I understand," she said, her voice barely a whisper, but laced with a newfound steel. "I'll tell my mother." She turned to leave, her head held high, though her heart felt like a shattered pane of glass. As Maya turned, A small, soft voice piped up from behind her. "Excuse me, miss." Maya paused, turning to see a small boy, no older than 7, in a brightly colored wheelchair. His eyes, wide and curious, looked up at her from beneath a mop of unruly brown hair. He had a small, worn teddy bear clutched in one hand. Beside him, a kind-faced woman, his caregiver, smiled apologetically. "Leo just wanted to say something," she explained gently. The boy, Leo, extended a small, slightly trembling hand towards Maya. In his palm rested a single, shiny penny. "For your money," he said, his voice earnest, his eyes full of innocent sympathy. "So it's not all gone." A gasp rippled through the small group of customers who had been silently observing the exchange. Miss Albright and Mr. Harrison, who had been about to turn away, froze. Maya's eyes, which had been brimming with unshed tears, softened. She looked at the penny, then at Leo's hopeful face. A wave of unexpected warmth washed over her, melting the icy sting of humiliation. This small, unexpected act of kindness, offered by a child who saw only her distress, not her perceived inadequacy, was a balm to her wounded spirit. She knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with Leo. "Thank you, Leo," she said, her voice thick with emotion. She gently took the penny. "This is the kindest gift I've received all day." She offered him a genuine, tear-filled smile. Leo's face lit up, a pure, unadulterated joy that seemed to momentarily banish the coldness of the bank. "You're welcome," he chirped as Maya straightened up. The heavy oak doors of the bank swung open, admitting a woman whose presence seemed to command the very air around her. She was tall, elegantly dressed in a charcoal grey power suit that seemed to flow rather than hang, perfectly tailored and understated. Her dark skin glowed under the bank's bright lights, and her hair, styled in a sleek, sophisticated bob, framed a face that was both beautiful and undeniably intelligent. Her eyes, a deep, piercing brown, swept across the lobby, taking in the hushed conversations, the ornate decor, and then, with a sudden, sharp focus, landed on Maya. It was Dr. Evelyn Jenkins. A ripple went through the few customers who had been observing the scene. Some recognized her, their eyes widening in surprise. Mr. Harrison, who had been about to escort Maya out, froze mid-turn. Miss Albright, who had been tidying her workstation with a smug air, looked up, her jaw dropping almost imperceptibly. Dr. Jenkins moved with a quiet, unhurried grace, her expensive watch glinting subtly on her wrist as she approached the teller window. Her gaze was calm, assessing, missing nothing. She didn't rush, didn't raise her voice, but her arrival had the immediate effect of silencing the low hum of the bank. The air grew thick with anticipation. "Maya, my dear," Dr. Jenkins said, her voice a rich, melodic tone that carried effortlessly through the suddenly silent lobby. There was no anger in her voice, no overt frustration, only a profound sense of calm authority. "Is everything all right? I apologize for being late." My meeting ran over. Maya, still holding Leo's penny, felt a surge of relief so powerful, it almost buckled her knees. "MOM," she whispered, the single word a mix of relief and lingering humiliation. They wouldn't take the deposit." She gestured vaguely at the envelope in her hand. Dr. Jenkins's eyes, which had been warm and reassuring as they met Maya's, now shifted to Miss Albright and Mr. Harrison. Her expression remained unreadable, but a subtle tightening around her mouth was the only indication of her true feelings. "Is that so?" she asked, her voice still calm, but with an underlying steel that made Mr. Harrison visibly stiffen. "And why might that be?" Mr. Harrison, recovering slightly, managed a strained smile. "Dr. Jenkins, I presume?" "Mr. Harrison, branch manager. We were just explaining to your daughter that for a cash deposit of this magnitude and given the presentation, we require the account holder to be present for verification. It's bank policy, you understand. Anti-money laundering regulations." He tried to sound authoritative, but a nervous tremor was evident in his voice. Dr. Jenkins's gaze was unwavering, piercing. "Indeed. And what exactly about the presentation of this deposit concerned you so deeply, Mr. Harrison?" Her voice was soft, almost conversational, yet it held the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. Ms. Albright, emboldened by Mr. Harrison's presence, chimed in. "Well, ma'am, the bills were not properly bundled, and it's a rather large sum for a cash deposit. We just need to be careful." She offered a weak, placating smile. Dr. Jenkins picked up the manila envelope from Maya's hand, her fingers brushing against Leo's penny, which Maya still clutched. She glanced at the neatly bundled stacks of cash, then back at Miss Albright. My daughter, Maya, is perfectly capable of handling a deposit. She's been doing it for years. And as for the bundling, I assure you, the funds are legitimate. Every dollar earned through honest, hard work. Her gaze hardened, a silent challenge. Are you suggesting otherwise, Miss Albright? Are you implying that my daughter, or indeed I, am involved in illicit activities? Mr. Harrison's face paled. No, Dr. Jenkins, not at all. It's simply protocol. We must be diligent. He stammered, clearly flustered. The easy confidence he had displayed moments earlier had completely evaporated. He recognized the name now. The full weight of Veritas Pharmaceuticals, a titan in the medical industry, crashing down on him. The CEO of Veritas Pharmaceuticals. He felt a cold dread creep up his spine. Dr. Jenkins reached into her impeccably tailored suit jacket and pulled out a sleek, black leather wallet. From it, she extracted a platinum card, embossed with the logo of Veritas Pharmaceuticals, and a pristine driver's license. She placed them on the counter, her movements precise and deliberate. My identification, Mr. Harrison, and my business card. Should you require further verification of my position? Her voice was still calm, but the authority was now undeniable. A quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. Now, perhaps you can explain to me why my daughter, a minor, was subjected to such an interrogation for a simple cash deposit into her own joint account. And why, precisely, was the source of funds questioned when a simple account lookup would confirm the consistent, legitimate flow of capital associated with my business? The silence in the bank was palpable, broken only by the faint whir of the air conditioning. Every eye in the lobby was now fixed on the scene at the teller window. The woman with the expensive handbag, who had been impatient earlier, now watched with rapt attention, a look of dawning comprehension on her face. Leo, the disabled boy, looked up from his wheelchair, his eyes wide, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Mr. Harrison's face was a mask of pure panic. He looked from Dr. Jenkins to Miss Albright, then back again, his mind racing. He had just publicly humiliated the daughter of one of the city's most powerful and influential business leaders. Not only that, but Veritas Pharmaceuticals was a major client of Grand Sterling Bank, their corporate accounts holding astronomical sums. This was a catastrophic error, Dr. Jenkins. I am so terribly sorry, Mr. Harrison stammered, his voice barely above a whisper, his usual stern demeanor completely shattered. He looked utterly defeated. There has been a grave misunderstanding. My deepest apologies. Miss Albright was simply trying to be thorough. He shot a desperate, pleading look at Miss Albright, who looked as if she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Her perfectly coiffed hair seemed to droop, and her cool blue eyes were now wide with terror. Dr. Jenkins ignored Miss Albright, her gaze fixed on Mr. Harrison. Thoroughness, Mr. Harrison, should be applied with discernment, not with prejudgment. My daughter was treated with suspicion and disrespect simply because she arrived without the trappings you might associate with serious money. Is this the standard of customer service Grand Sterling Bank offers to all its clients, regardless of their appearance? A few murmurs rippled through the observing customers. One older gentleman, who had been reading a newspaper, slowly lowered it, his eyes fixed on Dr. Jenkins with an expression of quiet admiration. No, Dr. Jenkins, absolutely not. Mr. Harrison insisted, his voice now desperate. This is an isolated incident, a terrible lapse in judgment. I assure you, it will be addressed immediately. Please, allow me to personally handle this deposit for you, and please, accept my sincerest apologies. To you and your daughter. He reached for the envelope, his hands visibly shaking. Dr. Jenkins did not immediately hand him the envelope. Instead, she looked at Maya, a soft, encouraging smile on her face. Maya, would you like Mr. Harrison to handle your deposit? Maya, still clutching Leo's penny, looked at Mr. Harrison's contrite face, then at Miss Albright's horrified expression. The sting of humiliation had begun to recede, replaced by a quiet sense of vindication. She had stood her ground, even when her voice trembled. Her mother had arrived, not with anger, but with dignity, and had turned the tables with quiet authority. She looked at her mother, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Yes, please, Mr. Harrison, Maya said, her voice clear and steady now, devoid of any tremor. She handed him the envelope. Mr. Harrison took it as if it were a fragile artifact, his movements unusually gentle. He quickly processed the deposit, his fingers fumbling slightly with the keys, his usual efficiency replaced by a nervous haste. He printed the receipt, his hand shaking slightly as he handed it to Maya. "Here you go, young lady. Everything is in order. And again, my sincerest apologies." Dr. Jenkins watched the transaction, her expression still calm, but her eyes held a depth of understanding that seemed to pierce through Mr. Harrison's forced politeness. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice dropping slightly, "I believe a bank, above all else, should be a place of trust and respect. Not just for those who arrive in luxury cars, but for every individual who walks through these doors. My daughter, Maya, carries herself with an integrity that no amount of wealth can buy. She is learning the value of hard work, of quiet strength, and of treating everyone with kindness, regardless of their station." Her gaze flicked to Miss Albright, who was now staring at her shoes, utterly mortified. "Perhaps some of your staff could learn from her example." The words hung in the air, a silent, powerful rebuke. Miss Albright flinched, but remained silent. Dr. Jenkins then turned her attention to Leo, the disabled boy, who was still looking up at Maya with wide, innocent eyes. She knelt beside Maya, her movements fluid and graceful. "And who is this kind young man?" she asked, her voice genuinely warm. Maya smiled, holding up the penny. "This is Leo M.M. He gave me this penny when he saw I was upset. He said it was for my money, so it's not all gone, Doctor." Jenkins's eyes softened completely, a genuine warmth replacing the steel. She reached out and gently touched Leo's hand. "Leo, that was a truly wonderful thing to do. You have a very kind heart." Leo's face blossomed into a wide, joyful smile. He reached out a small hand and gently patted Dr. Jenkins's arm, a simple, pure gesture of affection. It was a moment of profound, unscripted humanity in the midst of the bank's polished coldness, a child's hug that seemed to melt the tension in the room. Dr. Jenkins stood up, her gaze sweeping across the lobby, meeting the eyes of the observing customers. She didn't make a grand speech, didn't demand retribution. Instead, she simply said, her voice clear and resonant, "Dignity, respect, and kindness. These are the true currencies that matter." She then turned to Maya, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Are you ready, my love?" Maya nodded, her heart swelling with pride and a newfound sense of peace. She still held Leo's penny tightly in her hand. "Yes, M.O.M." As they turned to leave, a ripple of quiet applause started from the back of the lobby, initiated by the older gentleman who had lowered his newspaper. It spread quickly, a soft, respectful patter that grew into a genuine, heartfelt ovation. Customers who moments ago had been indifferent or silently judgmental now stood, offering their silent admiration to Dr. Evelyn Jenkins and her daughter, Maya. It was a public acknowledgement of a wrong righted, of silent dignity being respected, of a powerful person teaching a lesson not with anger, but with grace. Mr. Harrison stood frozen behind the counter, his face a mixture of shame and professional ruin. Miss Albright stared blankly ahead, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. They had learned the truth too late, their prejudice exposed and rebuked in the most public and humiliating way possible. The wealth and power they had so readily dismissed had just walked out the door, leaving behind a profound silence, heavier than any spoken word. Maya walked beside her mother, her head held high, the penny a warm weight in her palm. The polished boots of her mother clicked rhythmically on the marble, a steady, confident sound. Maya's sneakers, once feeling heavy and out of place, now felt light, carrying her forward with a newfound strength and peace. She had entered the bank feeling small and humiliated, but she walked out with dignity, her quiet power witnessed and affirmed. The experience, though painful, had forged something new within her, a deeper understanding of her own worth, and the enduring power of kindness in a world too often quick to judge. As they exited the bank and stepped into the bustling city street, Maya looked back for a moment. Through the grand glass doors, she could see Leo, still in his wheelchair, waving goodbye, his small, bright face a beacon of pure, innocent kindness. And in that moment, Maya knew she would never forget the lesson learned, nor the quiet strength she found within herself.